So, very good information.
You shouldn't have told me all this because
Listen,
there's a reason why
left the
I
office
homeschool.
perplexed.
There is a reason why I homeschool. One of the things, number one, Mr. Superintendent, PhD, BS.
He's a PhD. He's not a bachelor.
No, I know. My daughter would run circles around you.
So I mentioned that. So because the CEO with me said, I'm worried about scores. And I said, yeah. He's like, well, the more money we have, the more support we can give. We can do STEM, we can do this. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. Homeschoolers can't do all those things, but they perform better than public schools in testing. No, they don't. I disagree. I said, listen, I can take out a lot of tests, a lot of results to show you're wrong. You too. They don't perform better.
Yeah.
That's what he said. Now listen, maybe
it's a lie.
Maybe there's and I said, well, maybe it's a third. I'm trying to give him the shadow of a doubt. Because your daughter
always skew it. They always skew it because here's let's say what the state told you. The state said, remember, these are all Board of Education people, government.
Board of Education, legal department.
Yeah, the taxpayers' dollars. They all want to keep their jobs because they're all worthless, but they want to keep their jobs. She says, oh, well, I know of 2 cases where there was suicide or they died.
There was parental neglect.
Because of homeschool. And I'm like, yeah. And I know kids 5 times as many who killed themselves
in public schools
because of bullying.
Yeah. Bullying's an issue.
Yeah.
It actually happened to one of our relatives.
Yeah. And so you can spin stuff your way, but let's put it this way. I'll put my 5th grade daughter up against your 7th grade kids and see, because my daughter in 4th grade was already doing algebra.
Well, they're 54th of 55. So you may want to pick a different county to do it with because they're struggling. So his thought process is, listen,
close schools to help their education.
Somebody who, first off, I appreciate someone who comes up with a solution instead of doing nothing, because they told me so a lot of stuff was blamed on the previous superintendent. Know who she is. I don't even know what her name is. I mean, I have no clue. They blamed everything on her. She had a 3-year contract, and then we didn't like her, but we extended it 2 years, and she was going to come in and fix all this stuff. She didn't do a thing, so then we brought in Dilly to do it. That's what I was saying. So at least he has a plan. Now, the plan I don't think is going to help us score. Now, I'm making some presumptions. I don't think it's going to help us scores. He's going to mess up a lot of kids having to travel. I hope nothing ever goes wrong. That mountain this morning sucked. And he's from Tucker County, so he's driven it, so he knows.
I'm just telling you, the teachers that don't get riffed, I would mess their school system over. I don't
think you get any worse.
Well, that's true. When you're 55th. Well, they could be 55th.
I don't know what else they could do.
I would call off. I would use my sick days. I would make sure that they feel the hurt of their stupidity. And this is stupidity.
All right, so let me talk about something else.
Don't get me even more frustrated.
I left the meeting, and for the first time in my life, I sat in the car, hour and a half drive home, and I was just like, I'm perplexed. Because part of me wants to be sympathetic to Brad, who actually started when Tony started.
Oh, yeah.
He said, I'm friend with Tony. I said, good. We're friends with Tony, too. And he got a grin.
So neither of them got their CPAs together.
No, neither of them got their CPA. That is true.
I know.
Yeah. But they started at the same time. But Brad was very nice. And so I was very sympathetic to it in the way they were telling me stuff. But I left him like, I'm sympathetic because that's a tough position. But I'm like, what kind of leadership doesn't first say, if the kids are first, this is what we're going to do. So anyways, Terry George. Superintendent, Randolph County. Got a call last night at 9:30. I'm trying to sleep. Then I got a call at 10:30 for a reservation.
Yeah.
Let me see if they need anything.
We got to do business during our business.
Yeah, it was a customer. Anyway, So they said Terry George was superintendent over 10, 12 years ago. And I asked Brad about him. And Terry George, according to the gentleman who told me about Terry George came in, they were in financial challenges. And Brad said, yes, we're about $1 million in the deficit. Now, did any of the Board of Education members get brought up and get charged and have to pay that amount?
No.
And one of the Board of Education members, 2 of them keep saying, we're going to be charged. That's not true. And I said that in the meeting today. I said, whoever's telling them that is lying to them, or you're saying that to look good for the public. There's never been one prosecuted.
Well, listen, he's a
And
relative.
He
So
is a
there
relative
you
of
go.
Dilly.
You know.
And so I said, that's not true. So no matter if a Board of Education member says, well, I'm going to be sued, it's never happened. It could certainly be a possibility, but it's never happened, number one. And number two, they're only fined up to $500 or up to a year in prison. But there's never been a prosecution. So Terry George comes in. Superintendent goes to everyone. Stop spending. We're not doing trips. If you absolutely have to do a trip, I want everyone in the same car, every two in the same hotel rooms. I would assume that was, of course, gender specific, obviously. And I don't want...
Does that matter in today's society? It could be even worse, gender specific.
Well, it's just, well, whatever. So he wasn't putting men and women.
Wait, I bet you Dilly believes there's no such thing as gender, or there's 112.
I didn't ask him that. I was more concerned about him not closing Harmon. And so he's like, reuse trash bags. I want spending stopped. I want you to save as much. And I was told that in 3 years, they went from being in a deficit of $1 million to having a $200,000 plus surplus. Because and I said this to Brad, I said, so tell me about him. Brad's like, yes, he was good with that. I got along with him well. He said the challenge is the headwinds we have today are not the headwinds he had then. So that was the reasoning. Now, here's the funny thing. He didn't say, yeah, that'd be great. Maybe we should cut costs. Never a conversation. Maybe we should cut costs. Never a conversation. Maybe we're spending unwisely. Never a conversation.
Listen, why do you think Trump is getting such pushback for this Doge? Because they want to keep getting fat off of taxpayers' dollars.
Which is true. Which
Listen,
is
I was
unfortunate.
reading an article on that the superintendent put in the Intermountain, and it was so full of liberal dog whistles. But it
what?
also said that he gets a $5,000 raise
Yeah.
every year, guaranteed for the next whenever that was written. It was
his
for 4
contract's
years.
for 4 years. Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you're the next to last school. You should be giving them $5,000 because you got to bring those grades up before you get that.
Remember, when your family is on the board, it makes it easier.
I'm telling you. And I don't know these people personally. They might be great, but I can tell.
Well, two of them want nothing to do with us. Just
but I can. That's because we call them on their baloney.
yeah.
And it's the government is full of it, full
Which is sad.
of this stuff. And the only way it's going to get changed is if the people of Elkins, Harmon, Pickens,
takes a
Tigers
community to come
Valley
together. Yeah.
all raise up and say,
Enough's enough.
We're not going to vote your bond in.
The way
So-
you're spending is ridiculous.
Yes.
Get the spending under control, and then maybe we'll consider it. I'm still
I
against
still
it.
wouldn't.
I'm still against
I'm
it.
still,
I'm against that stuff. So went over that. The information we got yesterday was interesting because
yeah. And if I was this business, I would be livid as well.
Adrian Public Service District, and what they asked is, Norma asked that we read the letter. She said, read it, the letter. She said, I want them to hear what I wrote. And we can publish this.
Yeah.
So read the first paragraph, which is to Dr. Dilly. Read the first paragraph. I don't want to read the whole thing, but read the first paragraph.
My name is Norma Woody, and I am a manager of Adrian Public Service District, which just completed a multi-million-dollar water extension project to provide water to Pickens School and community in August of 2000. The Randolph County Board of Education and Randolph County Commission approached our district a few years back and requested that we extend our water distribution system to provide potable water to Pickens School. Both entities provided grant funding for this project along with United States Department of Agriculture and West Virginia Water Development Authority. Adrian Public Service District also obtained bonds from USDA totaling nearly $5 million to be repaid over a 40-year term. Repayment of these bonds is dependent on 3-year user contracts in the extension area. So, and we'll post this so the whole thing is...
So here's what happened. The Board of Education and the county commissioners went to Adrian Public and said, we need water, public water in Pickens. So, according to Norma, they said, okay, they started looking into it. We want to work with schools. We want to be a supporter of schools. So other customers got water as well, but they ran it up to Pickens. And now after having they got, it was $13 million, the whole project. They got some grants. Now it's a $5 million loan. Now there's a 3-year contract, I was told, for Pickens. So even though Pickens is shutting down, they'll get 3 years, about $5,000 worth of money. But when that's done, then I think schools, they have a 1-inch line. Schools are some of the biggest users of water in the county. Once that's done, if the school shuts down, sorry. So my question is, why did they ask? And then 2 years later, they come back and say, sorry, we're closing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get that. To me, that's no foresight. There's no leadership. Why? I'd feel horrible.
I'm telling you, people, who you elect
Matters.
is so important. And what we're seeing is there is a total, and I've said that, I said this about Greene County. There is a total disconnect between the school system and the representatives of the county. And it is bubbling beneath the surface, and there is going to be a day of reckoning, and these people are going to be held accountable for making dumb mistakes, for not inquiring to see what the budget actually is. Why are raises being given? I mean, it's just...
Well, Brad said it exactly right. He said the problem about this. He said, I've given all these reports you want, Justin, I've been giving these out for 2006, every year. No one ever comes to the meetings. Until we close the school, then the place is full. He's like, but no one cares until you get close to school.
Okay, so I'm going to push back on that. I've elected 5 Board of Education members
To represent you.
who are supposed to have my best interest and stop the needless spending, but they're not doing their job.
So here's the thing. We've already talked about corruption. I don't think we can rely on the people we vote in to go do the right thing.
Which is sad.
I mean that. I mean, seeing this, and like I said, some of the board reached back out, and we spoke with, I'm going to talk about that in a second, but knowing that the superintendent's a relative of one, and this is a 5-year plan, and they're sold on it, I don't see how you can think that's the right decision for the kids. So, talking to the
we
board,
already know their decision is made. They're
I
going to
feel like
blame
it
it
is.
on outside external
Yeah.
things to make themselves look good.
the doctor saying, "Oh, we'll get sued," which is a lie.
a lie.
Unfortunately, and I don't know who's telling him the lie. Either I would hope as a doctor you have a good attorney. I would assume you had a good attorney. Either someone's lying to him or he's just saying that to look good. It's not true. It's never happened. Never happened. But so here is one piece of information I got back with talking to some of the Board of Education members. and listen, I understand they have the final vote. They're the only one that votes.
Mm-hmm.
What I was told was the details that are presented to us by the superintendent and the treasurer are not extremely transparent for us to make good decisions.
Okay,
I
so
said-
what does that mean?
I said, give me an example. He said, okay, the buses. We just got a grant for 2 electric buses in Randolph County.
Which Grant County, they got one, maybe one or
Something.
2
Yeah,
buses.
yeah.
They got the same thing.
And so they did say, listen, that bus isn't going to be used locally. We know the mountains, and it's just going to be locally. Okay. So they brought it up to them. The president called for a vote, and they had like little time to make a decision. One of them, according to the newspaper, Intermountain voted against it. But nobody in the presentation, they didn't tell them that they would need charging stations. They didn't tell them they'd have to have make an investment. It's about $90,000 to $100,000. None of that was said. None of it was said. I even asked a question today. I said, well, what about your fire department? Can they handle this? Because Petersburg said, I hope
we
I'm not
know.
wrong.
Grant County cannot handle it
They said we had to bring in something special.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
because it's the lithium batteries, the way they burn.
Yeah. So I asked these questions about it, but that information was not given to them. And the Board of Education people that reached back out said, we are given such little information. Like these raises, unless we really dug in and became a full-time accountant like you're doing, and I got a thumb drive to go through. Unless we did that, we wouldn't know any of this. We're just here. Here's the budget. It's good. Superintendent approved. And they said, so right now the information we get is so vague. So what I did, because I'm thinking, was the Board of Education trying to kind of say, hey, it's not us. I called a retired Board of Education person. And I said, tell me how the budget goes. How does it work? Like when you get the budget, did they go through it line by line, or do they go through it, category by category or subcategory? And do they these 20 this is the raise for teachers, which is by the state. This is the raise for administrators. And that person said, no, we're given a master file to look at, whether it's printed as a spreadsheet or if we got it on electronic. And for us to go and find out what's in the budget, we have to go digging ourselves to find out. So the feedback that I got from some of the board members in Randolph County was consistent with the gentleman I called that's retired. There's a lot of times that what's presented to them is not extremely transparent. The details are not. And so it could be their way of saying, hey, I'm sorry, but we don't know what we're voting on. And you can say, well, then you need to dig. And I agree.
If you don't know what you're voting on, you don't vote. If you're pushed to vote for something that was just brought up tonight,
so how does that happen?
You don't vote.
Because the president can call it for a vote, right? If you don't vote, what does that mean?
That's the president's job, not to let that stuff on.
Listen,
God, it gets me so. I'm on 5 nonprofit boards.
This president isn't doing that,
and there are Robert's rules.
I understand that,
and the superintendent has nothing to do with that meeting.
Understand?
Nothing to do with that meeting.
And the ones I've been to, it has been run by the president in Randolph County.
Yes, which we already say Grant County doesn't. The superintendent runs the meeting, which is as backwards as. And you don't let anything on that agenda that you don't want onto the agenda.
So wait, hold on.
Agenda,
back up. So when you go in to the meeting,
no, you're supposed to have an agenda beforehand.
Okay, how far in advance?
Now rules on that, I don't know, but you should get it a week in advance
of what's going to be talked about.
Meeting.
Okay,
and you should go. This is the first time I'm seeing this, so we can talk about it.
Yeah.
But we're not going to vote on it.
So could a Board of Education member go to the president and say, we're not voting on this?
Well, what you do is if it's on the agenda, you can talk about it. Mm-hmm. Okay. And as the president, remember, I'm on boards. As the president, you can say, okay, we're going to table this until we learn more about it.
Let's say the president's not doing that. Let's say the president.
Well, then that's on the president.
Okay,
the president's not doing their job.
Okay, but what if the president says, hey, here's what we're going at, here's what we're voting on, here you go.
Okay.
And you're not the president. What if you say, if you need to, if you gave me this, let's say you gave it to me the day before, and it said electric buses.
So here's how it should go. We discuss there's electric bus. One of the 5, not the president, so one of the 4, would say, I make a motion that we approve this.
Okay.
Do I have a second? Well, I second it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if we look back in that minutes, we can see who motioned to accept that and who seconded it. And then if there's a second, then the president will go, well, all in favor, say aye.
Okay, so what if that was 2 people outside of the president? So there's 2 others. Let's say these 2 others had no clue about the electric buses.
They shouldn't be making a motion to accept, to vote on it.
Yeah, but you said it only takes 2 people.
I know. Then they have to vote no.
So, okay.
The other 2, but then it's 3-2.
Correct.
So you have the 2 that make the motion and the president. If they vote yes.
That's what I'm trying to get to. Because there seems to be some that are always a yes for what superintendent suggests.
Let's go to Grant County. And this is the lies that they spew. The Grant County superintendent has told them, if you all don't vote for this,
we've been told
then the county will come, or state will come in and take us over. So we need unanimous votes. That's a lie. And if you're voting 100% all the time, then you have the issue.
So it was a 4-1 vote for the buses. 4 voted yay, 1 voted nay.
And listen, it's still, in that system, it is a democracy. In the Grant County, when the 2 of the 5 said, we don't think, with us being shy of money, that the superintendent should take a trip to California. Mm-hmm. But the other 3 friends of his said yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It happens, but what needs to be done, and what we said we would be doing, is we would let the people know
who's voting,
who voted yes and who voted no, so next time you can get them out of there.